You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead, live from the Saratoga backstretch on this Sunday. We crossed the halfway point yesterday. 20 cards in the can and 20 still to go. Seth Merrill, Steve Bick, good morning.
Good morning. We haven't really crossed the threshold, not until they leave the gate at the first race today.
You don't think you crossed the threshold on halfway when they went under the wire on the 20th day?
I don't think so. I think that gets you up to the halfway point. How many times are you going to wear that tie this
Have I worn this one before?
Last Sunday, yeah.
I did?
Yeah.
That's great.
Wow.
You remember it more than I do.
Yeah, it's easy to remember because you should be writing them down. You mark out what you so you don't constantly, because you should know that I'm gonna be down there giving you the business.
Unlike you, I have not been labeled the Bo Brummel of Saratoga as you were in the
by the late great Vic Zaz.
That's exactly. Before we start, I do want to give a shout out to a fan of mine, young Jack. I was walking into the sales the other night, and his dad came out and said, "Jack's your biggest fan." And so the last couple of days I've been meaning to give a shout out and a thank you to Jack. Really appreciated that he's a fan of the show. So I hope he's watching this morning because, and again, Jack, really appreciate it.
Really nice. Well, I appreciate the way you allow me to beat up on you every Sunday. Huh?
That's fresh.
How about fresh? Probably picked this morning these little sugar balls, sugar cubes.
I love them.
Sugar mamas. These little tiny, remember duck pin bowling? You ever go duck pin bowling?
I didn't, but I know what it is.
In Connecticut, we had duck pins. And speaking of bowlers, we got the Matisse brothers at the bottom of the hour. You're in for you're in for a treat. But so are you.
This smells good, too.
Oh, forget about it. These are unbelievable. Discovered them last summer. I'm not even going to tell you where I get them. Because, frankly, I don't want people marauding my little secret stand that is providing these. But it's a bumper crop, apparently. And
thank you. Because, like I say, I love melons, and you can smell it. It's the melon smell, so thank you.
You can smell it through the TV.
And, again, appreciate that. We'll hit on, as you say, Matisse Brothers coming in. We'll hit on some of the stakes action, too. It was a big week. It was obviously a big week, and we'll hit on some of the sales action. But I think the overwhelming theme from the week, which 8 straight days, and including yesterday with Sue's Fortune and Voodoo Song, but going back to the results of the Whitney last weekend and Monday night at the sale with the $1 million New York Preds over the past 8 days. Just crazy.
There's no doubt. And last night, Mrs. Nielsen, and congratulations to Joanne Nielsen, who's been breeding nice New York breds for a long time. And, of course, lost her husband, got to be, 4 or 5 years ago by now. But Mrs. Nielsen cares about her horses, follows up on her horses. I got to know her a little bit over at Gary Siaka's barn with Saratoga Snacks, who she bred out of Near and Dear. The $1 million American Pharaoh, for starters, out of Party Silks. And then last night, $450,000 seller, the filly, who she was just as high on the filly's prospects. I had her on the show, caught up with her on Thursday, and congratulations to her and congratulations to everybody. Last night's, it's funny because last night was tracking the results and the high RNA rate, but when it was all said and done, the evening was a big hit, and they'll follow up tonight, 6:30, if you've not been. Last chance for the sales season over at the grounds, and they ended up very strong. Median was ended up even with last year's opening night, and we'll see about tonight. It's just been an amazing run. As you said, Exacta and the Whitney, and more. Voodoo Song, an amazing story. Linda Rice couldn't join us this morning. She's buried between sales action and the regular horses that she has to put through the paces today. But fascinating scenario having these New York breds perform the way they are at the highest level. And considering what a good sale we had for the select yearling portion, not unexpected that the people that might have been rebuffed on Monday and Tuesday are coming back and quite happy to have New York breds, whether they're going to campaign them here locally or take them to wherever they do campaign.
Yeah, with the weather yesterday, as I walked out of the track, it started to come down, so I was soaked. So I went home right afterwards, and I didn't get back up for the sale. But tonight, I think if this holds up, I'm going to pop over tonight. And again, if you've never been to the sale, swing by. The New York bred sale has become not quite as popular as Monday and Tuesday, but it's getting pretty close.
Well,
the crowd out there.
Monday night was insane. Monday night, a number of people who've been coming forever suggested that they've never seen the crowd like that. That included inside the Humphrey Finney Pavilion. And really, really stunning. I've got a lot of the information. We went over it extensively Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on radio, and a lot of great success stories. And everybody focused on Medaglia d'Oro, who had the 3 top hips on Tuesday night, the 2 American Pharaohs with this first real big offering of Pharaoh babies that are clearly going to be a big hit. Keeneland released their catalog for the big September sale. They released it on Tuesday morning, and 81 American Pharaohs in that sale, which is amazing. But I'll mention a couple of other names that were a little bit not under the radar per se, but Into Mischief had 13 hips in the select sale. There was no RNAs, there were no outs. All 13 sold for an average just under $500,000. Into Mischief is really one of those outstanding opportunities for commercial breeders or for those that breed to race. A lot going on. The first crop stallions did terrific, including some of the ones that are pretty much of value, like Honor Code, Liam's Map. The market is very strong right now, and the stronger it is on top, the more it pushes down to fill out that much needed middle market that we've heard a lot about. And everything bodes well for a big time at Keeneland when we get past Labor Day and everybody heads to the big box store sale of Keeneland. Yeah,
Monday and Tuesday, obviously very big. Last night, the New York breds. And as I say, if you've never been to the sale, swing by tonight. Block and a half up the street from the track. Kicks off like the Monday, Tuesday, 6:30 kickoff. 6:30, 7 o'clock, somewhere in that vicinity. Okay, so stop up the street. Again, come to the races during the day and pop over there and enjoy watching the sales.
And even if you can't come tonight, it is Sunday. A lot of people will head home for those that aren't either local or staying through. But you can go over during the race day. You could go over right now and watch the horsemen observing and cataloging and shortlisting their selections, and it's really educational. And you can listen in a little. Nobody's going to mind, but you can see them watching for confirmation. You'll see them walk back and forth, and they're evaluating. They'll put their hands in some cases, check throat, forehead sometimes, and so forth. It's a great experience to watch the accomplished bloodstock personnel observing and evaluating the yearlings. Take advantage of that if you can't come tonight at 6:30.
Bring them out of the stall, and they'll stand in front and watch them walk, and then get the profile. And it's interesting having people in here over the last couple of years talk about the other side of it, consigners and whatnot. They're making notes too. Who's looking at my horse? Who's likely to bid? How's this going to play out? And it's a fun kind of a game over there with, as I say, the biggest gamblers in the sport. The gamblers over here don't match up with the folks who play Monday and Tuesday night, particularly across the street. All right, ready to look at some of the races from yesterday?
Absolutely, and we're also going to talk some handicapping themes that will probably bring through with Duke and with Paul Matisse, most notably the off-the-turf discussion, because I got to tell you, based on the internet, where nobody actually clearly bets, stop the grousing about the off-the-turf. You're missing what is right now in the current wagering landscape, where we're having to fight against these computer groups and have so many things that are against us. Well, when races come off the turf, and you hear Andy Serling has been explaining this to people for years, you'd think that some of the grousers would catch on. But when races come off the turf, and if the fields are at least marginally intact, 6, 7, 8 horses at least, the value is insane. On Thursday, Mama White Sox in the nightcap paid $15.80 and was absolutely the right horse. How about Mamo to start the pick six? Horse should, Andy even tweeted, the horse should have been 4-5, was 4-1. I mean, if you just throw up your hands and say, "Oh, they're off the turf, we can't play today," you're not serious about the game. You're not doing the work. You're not really interested in taking advantage of what is being offered to you, because the public is invariably, as Andy explains, betting as if the races are still on turf, and they're missing horses who are 20-1 on turf, but now suddenly should be 5-2, 7-2 in the main track scenario. And it doesn't even have to be wet tracks. I mean, today, for instance, you're going to have a fast, dry track. You don't have to look for wet track breeding and so forth. You're going to have a dry, fast surface. So don't throw up your hands, and don't be like the naysayers and those that really don't bet. They just like wet blanketing the action. You're missing out if you do not take advantage. And we'll have Duke and Paul explain how they approach it.
I walked out one day, one of the rainy days, out by where Paul typically sits, and talked to him at the end of the day, and he said, "I like these kind of days." And I said, I'm in the same boat. You can find value. And the funny thing a lot of times is you get the value with the horses who should be taking more action with a move to the main track, and that's because sometimes you look and you scratch your head. A horse that hasn't even shown a main track start is 4-5, and again, the folks just don't make that switch in their thinking.
We're going to ask Paul and Duke as well. The computer. We're going to talk computer batch wagering anyway. The computer robotics, like we discussed with Marshall Graham. But one of the things that is also probably happening in the tote board action, the computer bettors, their model are probably not able to adjust to this scenario as well as you can in for once. The computer models that are computing and taking the tote action, they're probably being misled themselves by that wagering toward horses that would have looked better had the races stayed on grass. And that is only further enhancing our opportunity as human beings to bet and to adjust. I mean, they play this game outdoors, and if you can't bob and weave. I mean, yesterday was a perfect example. You did have to be adroit, and you had to be ready to quickly reevaluate the races when the 4th and the 5th came off, and there was still an opportunity in the pick 5. And then later, of course, we got the all button, and frankly, the pick 4 paid okay, $67 with the all button in the nightcap. You might have done okay in that scenario, but just like days where there's a inside bias, an inside rail, you have to adjust even when the weather is good. You know to adjust when we've got a hard-baked turf scenario. You know to watch for the isolated speeds at Gulfstream during the winter when the thing is lightning fast. Why is this any different? Just because the races have moved off. I don't get the consternation.
Maybe you shouldn't be saying this. Maybe this should be like the secret,
like the melons.
Like the melon
This
secret.
I don't mind sharing because I want people to do well.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
if you take this game seriously and you want to make money, Thursday in particular, I blew it yesterday with the cat horse. Was it Calico Cat? I absolutely, I was kicking myself as they were heading for home. But on Thursday, it was clean up in aisle 3 with Maymo and with Mama's Black Sox. I mean, White Sox.
All right, we should probably take a break and then come back and take a look at some replays.
No, I'm on a roll.
You'll
spitting fire.
You will remain. You will remain.
Are we cutting up that melon?
Well, that might not be a bad idea. Like I say, smells good. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back and take a look at some replays. And again, the Matisse brothers a little bit later on. Stay tuned. All of that right after this.
Sign up today for Capital OTB's handicapping series and plan your trip to Las Vegas.
The backstretch workers are the heart and soul of what we do.
They're the backbone of the industry.
People on the racetrack are very giving people.
It's a very oppressive community of people helping one another. We see it all the time.
Any help we need is right there in their hands.
It makes so much easier in the family to have somebody like Naita to help them.
For 4 generations, Bruce Cerrone and his family have continued the 96-year tradition of delighting their local following and faithful summer crowd with the finest authentic Italian recipes. Classic Italian dishes made with the freshest ingredients and served in a home-like setting, where everyone is welcome. Some things have changed in the last 96 years, but not Pinnell's commitment to the finest in Italian cuisine. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. Yeah, he hasn't. You're still going. You're still on the roll here. So we'll jump in. We'll take a look. We're going to pull up the full replay from the 4-star Dave yesterday, because for me the race was over by the time they hit the first turn, and Heart to Heart let Voodoo Song go. Voodoo Song's going to be the number 6 horse. Nice late run from Delta Prince for Jimmy Jerkins. Divisadero runs third. Yoshida kind of as the 9-5 favorite, just never got into it.
No.
Heart to Heart winds up last, but as I say, it was over by the first turn when Voodoo Song got the easy lead. The fractions were not particularly mind-boggling, and so you would thought the horse would have something left. And when Delta Prince, about the 8th pole, looked to maybe be making a winning move, Voodoo Song would not let that one go by and defined himself as clearly and truly a horse for a course.
This was interesting, and I don't blame Heart to Heart. I don't blame Julian Leparoux for sitting and stalking, and that was going to be the game plan. The odd portion of this is that he really backed up and got swamped. In fact, kind of a rough day for both of the opportunities for Brian Lynch when it came to Oscar Performance later on in Chicago in the million. But beyond that, Dave Grenig wrote about and talked about Delta Prince and his conversation with Jimmy Jerkins, who is as easy a read, really. You can always tell when Jimmy's excited about an opportunity. And not only was Jimmy excited, and not only did Dave translate it for everybody, but so did the DRF Clocker report. that really lauded the way Delta Prince was coming into this. And Jimmy's done a great job, not just with this horse, but really with the whole opportunity that he had with Adina and the Stronach family. Delta Prince comes running, gets a Grade 1 black type. This is a 5-year-old that's as regally bred as you're going to find. Street Pride out of the AP Indy mare, the wonderful Delta Princess. And look at this. I mean, there's a chance here. There was a couple of strides about 75 yards out where you thought, oh, he's going to corral him. Yeah. But Voodoo Song, I don't want to bury the lead. But Voodoo Song, what a storyline this is now. 5 for 5 at Saratoga, but it's more than just at Saratoga. I mean, sure. He's really done Linda has done an amazing job with him, and it's a remarkable story that this horse was available for $40,000, and of course when we get to the conversation about the Secretariat, there's another horse that was available for claim at the beginning of his career. Well, English Channel son, the Barry Schwartz homebred. What can you say? A Grade 1 winner now to go with his Saranac last year, and I mean he's earning his way probably at a chance to stand stud.
Yeah, it's just a very, very nice performance, certainly. And yeah, as you said, it's not just Saratoga. That Forbidden Apple down at Belmont was phenomenal as well. The follow-up by Dave Grenick quoted Barry Schwartz as saying kind of had to talk Linda Rice into it a little bit. They were looking at the lore, but Barry said, why try that? It's kind of an allowance. Yeah, let's try the Grade 1, and they wind up with a Grade 1 up here at Saratoga. Also wanted to go back a little earlier on the card, show the Adirondack, number 6, Sue's Fortune. I had Jeremiah in on Friday, and he talked a little bit about this horse, and he said, we came out of the win down at Belmont beating New York breds, and I thought, I'll kind of follow the path Todd did last year with Pure Silver, who was a New York bred who wound up winning the Adirondack. Said, the early filly stake and then the spin away later are maybe a little tougher, and so a little bit of an easier spot with this middle stake for the 2-year-old fillies, and gets it done with Sue's Fortune. Again, another New York bred winner on the stakes calendar up here at Saratoga.
Very much so, and what a good job that Maya does with the young horses. And maybe part of the storyline in here had to be yet another late run from a Todd Pletcher horse, a Todd Pletcher 2-year-old. It's been as strange a first half of the meet when it comes to the Pletcher babies, and it might be that Virginia Eloise is going to be best going longer, but this is yet another dawdle early, fly late, like we saw from Vino Rosso. Who worked yesterday morning in preparation for the Travers. Travers continues to be a evolving story 2 weeks from yesterday, and the field continues to grow and be very appealing. But terrific action from the Engelhart barn, and Jeremiah doing a nice job. This was also a nice win. Junior Alvarado, who's quietly had a terrific meet.
Let's go out to Chicago and take a look at
what happened to. We're not going to win. What about Shuggy?
I didn't call for the lure.
You didn't call for the lure,
but it was a nice performance.
That's very gracious of you. I thought this was a phenomenal performance by Inspector Lindley, and another guy that's having a productive meet under the radar, Jose Lascano, who rode him absolutely brilliantly, and he was controlling that entire field when he decided to kind of come up on the outside and commence his rally. He basically hamstrung other horses that were looking to rally as well. This was a really heady performance by Inspector Lindley, the Lemon Drop kid, out of criminologist for the Phippses, and Stu Janney, and of course everybody over a lot of those Jockey Club types over at the round table this morning at the Gideon.
And I'm not shortchanging Shug. We asked him to be here, and he said round table. So I'll try to get him in this week, and we'll talk.
I'll have him on the radio.
Well, we'll both have him. You're on the radio side.
We should save him maybe for next week.
TV side.
We want to get him on TV. Shug's fun to have on TV.
And he said he would have been happy to do it. He's over at the round table. All right, Arlington Million on a big day for Chad. Obviously, it's going to be number 10 Robert Bruce over Almanar, the Chad Brown Exacta. Century Dream winds up running third, but is disqualified subsequently, and Kesho Andai winds up being placed third at 36-1.
A lot of New York horsemen coming away very happy, between Morley winning with Carrick and Chad with the two Beverly D and Arlington Million exotic crushing. And what about Napal Chatterpaul with Catch O&D? It gets a grade 1 placing in one of the top races in American turf. Good job. I was kind of tickled about that. I thought Chatterpaul didn't get enough of recognition when the horse went to Chicago and won the prep. Really has done a nice job. It's very cool.
All right, let's look at the Beverly D, because this was a Chad Brown trifecta. Sister Charlie, the number 3, will win. 4-Star Crook gets up to run a nice second in here, and 4-Star Crook, again, another New York bred.
Another New York bred.
And Thace, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Thace.
Runs third in there, the number 5 horse. Again, Chad in the trifecta in the Beverly D.
Well, and you can see that just the absolute driving finish by Sister Charlie, who really has found her sea legs in North America. And we should also, you can see the green yoke, the light green on the dark green jacket of Peter Brandt, who's really come back strong in the game, buying horses too. He's been very active, was active last night. When you see White Birch Farm as the buyer at the sales, that's Peter Brandt, who has really re-entered the game in a big way. And Chad Brown doing a nice job on the afternoons, and whatever else is going on in the evaluation of the bloodstock, Peter Brandt back in a big way.
And got to show the Secretariat, because Analyze It, the one-time presumed kind of super turf superstar, beaten a couple times by Catholic Boy coming into this in ding-dong battles. Another ding-dong battle yesterday, and it's Carrick for Tom Morley. Ships in and wins at 38-1 over the 4-5 Analyze It. Bandua runs third in here. But again, nice win for Tom Morley. Gets a grade 1 on his resume with the Secretariat yesterday down in Arlington.
Well, Donegal Racing, they've won this race. Patio Prado won it a handful of years ago, and you can see the yellow and green jacket and corralling Analyze It, who ran fine, ran well again. I don't know, he'll get his win. There's no denying that he does everything that he needs to do. He just has to finish up and somehow keep his nose in front. This was a crazy overlay by all rights.
Yeah.
And when you looked at this race, all you had to do was go back to that race that Carrick ran at was it at Gulfstream? No, at Belmont. That starter allowance, and there was no reason for him to be that big of a price. This is the advantage of a 13-horse field. Everybody was excited about the pucker up at the end of the card because it was a big bulky field and there were a lot of horses to bet. Here, I think we all may have gotten, myself included, we may have gotten kind of focused on just a couple of the key players. And certainly Platinum Warrior ran well enough at a nice price. He ends up getting nosed out for third. But Carrick, if you glossed over him, that was a bit of a mistake. And that starter allowance victory, in terms of figs, that was also a key race. A bunch of horses behind him came back and won out of it. So Carrick really kind of taking advantage of a great opportunity, was well drawn. John Velasquez, who of course was off his mounts for much of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, with a bulky ankle, goes to Chicago, comes home with 2 big wins in the Bev and the Secretariat. Graham Motion won that fabulous nightcap. Speaking of the pucker up, that was a nice big price. And we are left at Arlington with a nearly $350,000 pick 5 carryover, and it is a very approachable sequence. I would really recommend that people take a look at this. This is one of those positive expectation. The Matisse boys who are joining us after this break, they'll tell you what a great opportunity it is. And this group, you'll have probably 1.2 million that'll be bet into that pick 5. And more money is going to be distributed to the players than should be in that scenario. So take advantage.
And you also, and I think it's worth mentioning, you said you wanted to talk about the best pal out of Del Mar yesterday.
Unbelievable.
This is a pretty good-looking 2-year-old. We didn't call for the replay. I was showed sometime during the week, but Instagram at 1-9 wins by 10 lengths. The second big win in 2 career starts for Jerry Hollendorfer.
Well, Larry Best, who some people laughed at when he came in a big way, started spending $1 million on 2-year-olds in training and on yearlings. People was, another schmuck, another sucker has come along. Yeah, Larry Best is seeing the fruits of his approach. John Dowd helps him on the bloodstock side, and he's got instilled regard, of course. Not every 7-figure purchase has panned out, but this horse, Instagram, Brill, and Roaten, they're coming in waves for Larry Best, OXO Equine. And when people dive into this industry the way Larry Best has, it's good to see them rewarded.
All right, we'll head to a break. When we come back, the Matisse brothers are in the house. We'll get them seated and have a conversation right after this. Stay tuned. Loose on the Lead continues.
Buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy half hour.
Looking for a fantastic meal? Stop by Malcolm's, a unique farm-to-table restaurant experience. Located at 617 Union Street in Schenectady, Malcolm's offers locally grown fresh foods, mouth-watering flavors, an enhanced drink menu, and terrific service. Malcolm's is a sure bet during Saratoga season. Make your reservation today.
Pick, bet, and cheer on live racing from Woodbine and Mohawk Park. Thoroughbred and harness action. The wagers are just the beginning. Watch award-winning broadcasts covering both breeds, incredible battles contested over the most unique grass course in North America. Experience the full fields with over 130 thoroughbred and 160 live harness days. Get access to free handicapping material and join the ranks of Woodbine and Mohawk Park players from all over the globe. For more information, visit woodbine.com.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
We're back on Loose on the Lead, always one of our special and most favored episodes of the summer when the Matisse brothers can join us. And Duke, the expiry date we've been reached on Duke, who's going to head back to California soon. Welcome, Duke and Paul Matisse.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
Steph,
as
Steve,
always.
how you doing?
Steph.
We're good, and some of you that we're following on Twitter, you can follow both Duke and Paul. And Paul heralded his arrival here by remembering back to last year's visit when we discussed picking blueberries up there by Schuylerville. Yeah. But I went a little big. I went for melons. I went melon. Remember, you're a melon.
For the melon turf course.
But I'm bummed. There you go. Exactly. Which by the way, Yesterday, a bit of,
Yeah.
that 11th should have been taken off at the beginning of the day.
That's what I was just saying.
And frankly, the clods that were being thrown up, the course took a hit yesterday. And everybody understands we want to run the grass races, but you can't do it when you've got another 3 weeks of racing here. You can't tear the thing up to shreds, and people have to adjust. You've got to just do what you can when they come off the turf.
Yeah, without a doubt. The thing to remember about we were on the Mellon Turf to start with, the way it's been playing, I think, is the most important story. About the turf, it's favored the outside speed for most of the meet. So there's still hope to make some money off of that, I think, in this meet. I think that's probably the best angle, wouldn't you say, of the...
I think it got worse yesterday because the horse in the sprint was about in the 10 path down the stretch. So.
All the horses on the inside are at a disadvantage on the Mellon Turf. So if you go back and watch the replays for the rest of the meet, keep that in mind.
We're at the halfway point, 20 cards in the book and 20 starting today to get to Labor Day. How about expanding on that in terms of the first half? It sure feels like the general serious playing population have struggled a little bit. I don't hear a lot of people crowing how they're crushing the meet.
Yeah, there haven't been a lot of opportunities. I don't think it's just been difficult. You have so many off the turf races and a lot of 2-year-old races, and Todd's not winning any, and Chad's not winning too many. So it's not the normal Saratoga, that's for sure.
Well, the thing about Saratoga, I say this every year. When you come to Saratoga, it's almost like the beginning of the season. Everybody argues with me that every time, but then you get here and it's completely different than anything that's happened at Churchill and anything that's happened at Belmont. And I always tell everybody to be patient and pick your spots here early in the meet. But you just get up here and the excitement is, just
overwhelms.
Gets you. Your Twitter, Facebook friend, Battler, he's 99% of the time he talks about nonsense, but the one expression that he has is that you can't lose your composure when you're gambling. And
why?
And that's the, really, it's so important up here that not to do that. And I see it, time and time again. My son, he's had a horrible meet, and he's already packed it in and wants to quit. And so, it's an easy thing to do, but you have to, try your best not to fall for all the hoopla that goes with the beginning of the Saratoga meet.
As we enter the second half, you talk about replays. There's been certainly portions of the meet and certain periods where we've had some unique circumstances, including that handful of days about a week and a half ago, give or take, where we were getting kind of that balcony, the Belmont balcony, horses rallying from off the pace and outside, something we rarely see here. And when you talk about the winners coming from certain places in the paths or from the outside on the Mellon, this lends itself to bet backs and bet against. How do you want to suggest that people dive into this second half of the meet?
I did those replays actually yesterday, so there are quite a few horses that were on dead rails on, I believe it was August 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think were the days that were pretty severe outside closer.
Definitely 5th and 6th, right?
Definitely, no, I think it's definitely the 4th and 5th. I think the 6th is questionable, but it's definitely the 4th and the 5th. And I did note a lot of horses that did run well on the inside, so there are going to be horses to play off those days if you're paying attention.
And I keep in mind this track has jumped around and it's changed quite a bit, primarily because of the weather. Primarily, some to do with the new modern ways of they do tracks. It's not the old school way of doing things with track maintenance, so you got to be paying attention. There's within day changes. That's something that's a new handicapping phenomena that, say 5-10 years ago we never had to worry about. I think speed figures are going to be very difficult to do. I know last week I had a lot of trouble. I noticed in the times yesterday, you're going to be you're going to have a hard time really doing those, Steve. It's just an absolute, the 6.5 furlong race went 119. in the Adirondack, and then later on, it seemed to speed up a little bit, and it's questionable if the rail got good late in the day. So the guys are doing their homework. I think are going to do good off of this speed.
Well, and that's a theme that we can advertise and suggest at all times. If you're taking the game seriously, you got to put in the work.
Well, this is also a good time to fold in because we were talking before about days like this where they're off the turf, and I said I talked to you early in the meet walking out, and it was one of these days, and you said usually I do pretty well on a day like this. I'm the same because I think it's a day when the general public kind of doesn't get clued in often on the switch to the main track, and so you get some false favorites, and there's some value out there potentially on days like this.
Yeah, you got to make adjustments on days like this because when you look at the form and you got 6 turf races and now they're all running on the dirt, so probably the average person can't catch up. You can't catch up at least before the pick 5 starts. That's for sure. So now you got, if you can quickly, generate, put the scratches in and form some opinions early on, you might be able to beat everybody to the
theory too about these days too with off the turf. I think in the modern day handicapping, there's so much transferring of information and picks and steam. It's like all over the place. And when this comes up, it's like it's out the window. Nobody has any idea. And now it's back to the old school handicapping. And that's why I think that you and I and the guys who, the traditional handicappers, do better on days like these. I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think there's some truth in it.
No, there's a lot of truth in it. Yesterday, Duke, you mentioned having to move quickly when word came that races 4 and 5 were coming off the turf. That gave you only about 40 minutes to refashion if you wanted to play the pick 5. And in that group of races, obviously the tough horse was Cairo Cat, but if you had the chance to really go back and dig around, you could have come up with Cairo Cat, made some. You couldn't on Thoroughgraph. I tell you what, as a Thoroughgraph horse, as the Thoroughgraph horse for dirt, he was there.
Yeah, I mean the race was wide open. It was a spread race. Even when it came off, it was a spread race.
Well, but Greek Alphabet paid $7.
Well, that was the key. I think that's a better analogy. That horse became a
single.
There he
is.
Yeah, Greek Alphabet became my single of the day.
How about that?
But the problem was I didn't have Cairo Cat.
Yeah, right.
And the other problem was I was getting a sandwich about 12:45, and I had to get the pick 5 in by, post time, so it was kind of tough. So I was walking to the track. And
I think we got a little unlucky in that race too. The one with Cairo Cat. I mean, I think he might arguably been the 5th best horse. The way that the race was run, they kind of the 14 forced the hand of Dylan Davis to go early, which we used that long shot the 5, who ran really well, and then. The horses that came on the outside got the 8 started going in and out.
Oh, the 8 was zigzagging through the stretch.
On the other horses. And
that was the favorite. Was that the Chad? That was
the overbet.
That was the Chad.
The 3 in that race ran really well. I think wasn't that a Todd Firster that got left and circled? Yeah.
They're all getting left and circling.
Yeah.
What is that's something people have had to adjust to.
People asked me that yesterday, and I went to John the Clocker for maybe some info on that. He thinks it's because he's training most of his horses over at Oklahoma. That's what he says. He says the gate's different there versus here. I don't know much about that, but that's what he told me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Cairo Cat obviously boosts what ends up being a bonanza pick 5. The other day, I'll also mention the 2 horses. There was the carryover that we had going into Thursday, and Mamo, the invader from was that the Finger? No, the Finger Lakes invader was Sally Iorio in the nightcap. Mama White Sox. How that horse paid what it paid, $18, and how Mamo paid $10 was astounding.
Well, I think it goes back to what Seth and I were talking about. It's just when the races makeup changes quickly, I think it's an advantage for everybody because we're in a new environment. And I listened to you earlier, and I do think there's some truth in the fact that there's the robotic wagering is probably a little behind on these off the turfs. My nephew and I we're working on a project to do a little robotic stuff, and all the things that you have to be on your toes to do is it's very difficult. And I'm sure it's something that it's probably not high priority because it's not a lot of races per year, and I think that it's not an easy thing to accomplish when you start going through the process of trying to, all right, what am I going to do? We got to switch all of the stuff from turf to dirt. Then we got to get the scratches. Then we have to, the betting patterns. Then we have to analyze how the race is being bet, when it was come off the turf. There's a lot there for a computer to pick up, and I think I said this on the radio show with you before. I mean, those are things that I think the handicappers will always have an advantage over the computer side.
Well, and that quote of yours on radio about a month ago really took root. This came after the Dwyer, and after there was complete bewilderment at what transpired in the Dwyer. And we did have Marshall Graham with us a couple of weeks ago and discussed some of it with him. A great opportunity to have the two of you here, and knowing the kind of volume wagering that you do. Paul, from your perspective, and Duke, give us how you suggest the serious and the casual player, how they should react and view the computer batch wagering, the computer robotics that are creating this late odds change scenario that people are really frustrated with, and we understand why they're frustrated. But like anything around this game, understand it and utilize your understanding to take advantage as best you can.
Well, I mean, understanding is the most important thing, I think. That you're going to see some changes coming up. I've talked to some people that have the technology, and we talked about that too, trying to make things better for the better and giving them more technology in their hands. And I think we're going to see it. We're going to see imputed odds for what the odds should be based on the will pays, and then we're going to see odds based on the exactas, and hopefully we don't have the technology because the tow companies are 30, 40 years behind, but I think they'll even get the triples and supers once they realize how powerful it is that we can see, all right, that this horse is really, he's on the board at 6-1, but his overall odds on all the pools are 4-1, so.
How is it that the South American tote companies are able to give us the veils, the trifecta veils, and we can't?
We shouldn't go down that.
Is this a rabbit hole, Duke? Are you ready to? Duke's the steam is coming out of Duke's ears.
Yeah, you don't want to get me talking about it. I mean, I'm frustrated enough when I see a horse that I bet that's 6-1 and goes to 5-2 in the last flash. So I mean, it is amazing.
But you do know it's coming. I mean, are you wagering?
Do I know it's coming?
Your best.
I think sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't. That's the frustrating part. So when you do bet a horse that you think is going to go off, maybe you think he's going to go off 4-1, and it gets buried like to 2-1. That's extremely frustrating because you're not betting enough, and you don't have the opportunity to bet as many bets as they do in the last 20 seconds.
And you can't counter it.
There's no way to counter that. I mean, once it goes down, what do? I'd rather cancel the bet.
I've asked you on occasion to elaborate about the B and C tracks. I mean, the assumption is that players on your level are focused on California and Florida and New York, but in fact, you're quite willing and quite happy to bet the B and C circuits.
But they're hurt worse. I mean, that's the one thing I've noticed by this new wave of computer playing. A place like Mountaineer, which was an absolute gold mine for years and years. It was a night thoroughbred track that a lot of players would play after work and that sort of thing, and it was pretty easy pickings. But the computer guys have come in and just demolished any value you have at all at Mountaineer, and it's a huge problem for the industry, and it's gonna, you gotta deal with it as a player. You gotta deal with the way you can, but I do believe there's some advantages, but I don't think it's an easy. The solutions aren't easy, and I find that frustrating when you ask me or if somebody else asks me, walking around the track, what do I do? It's not a 3-word answer. You know,
there's not a lot you can do. I mean,
Yeah.
what can you do? What can you do when a horse drops that kind of odds after you play it?
If you are part of the betting public that is frustrated with this, are you better off trying to leverage your opinion into pick fours and pick fives, and where they can't participate to the level they do
Well,
individuals?
that's generally what we do. But the problem in New York when you bet a pick four or pick five is right now is either weather or track changes. I mean, at Gulfstream, I seem to be doing better at Gulfstream than anywhere, and I think it's because there's large fields, and they seem to have not a lot of what you call wise guy, big time odds changes at the end, and I think it's because the races are difficult.
Which is interesting because the volume continues to be rather remarkable at Gulfstream during this off season. Certainly, dwarfing what Calder would do at this time of year, and we know that the computer groups have cozied up, or Stronach Group has cozied up to them.
Certainly, yeah, but I don't know why I'm doing better there, but it just seems to be, maybe because I'm following it closely. Maybe a lot of guys like them aren't, like Paul and Seth aren't. I don't know.
Is it also potentially, and I don't want to completely color it this way, but at least, really for the most part, it's cheap racing right now. It's lower level, and in terms of the quality, I mean, there are allowances and there are maiden specials and so forth. But is it? I've heard. I think it was probably Brad Free that convinced me several years ago when I used to voice frustration at cheap maiden races and at low-level starter allowances, and Brad said, I love them. They're the easiest for me to handicap because the horses are formful.
Yeah, they're great, and there's a lot of conditions. There's a lot of conditions. Horses can actually make drops like they used to, like in the old days. There's small drops.
Races.
A lot of cheap claiming, never won twos, never won threes.
Real claiming races.
And so
which we've lost in New
you
York.
learn which races were more live than others, and not only that, they've had a little bit of a dead rail down there for a while, which is becoming the norm everywhere. But and that's helped too, because sheep players don't win as much when there's dead rails.
So that's interesting. You don't like the open claimers, or you like the open claimers as opposed to now that these conditional claimers that have become kind of the norm all over the place?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think the open claimers are the most formful races that we've ever had in racing. But we do have a lot of other outside factors. I mean, this is one of the things that I'm trying to tackle. I'm on this new Thoroughbred Ideas Foundation board, and I'm trying to push that we have some problems, particularly in New York, with the condition book, big stables dominating, and just getting the right races to go, and we have to really use some new ideas to come up with, think outside the box completely than from what we've had in the past, because the old stuff's not working, and the weather's been bad, and I know that's hurt the racing a little bit here at this meet, but NYRA has a problem with a small product problem right now, because we're not getting the full fields in with good horses enough.
You're not getting a full field claiming $25,000 race.
So there is,
that's if you don't get that. I mean, what?
We don't have a one other than. A one other than is a staple of New York racing. I was talking to Mark Hopkins about figures related, and he said, well, you just got to compare the one other thens. But I said to him, no, the one other than doesn't resemble. The one other than in 1988 doesn't resemble the one in 2018. It's it's 5 horses with 2 trainers, or 6 horses with 3 trainers.
Yeah, we don't run enough dirt races with more than 6 horses in it. I mean, you think about all the dirt races they've run up here that were scheduled for the dirt. If it's not a 2-year-old race, it's got 6 horses in it.
Even a 35 claimer on the turf, which is a staple of Saratoga. I mean, when I was younger, that was always one of the best races. It was 14 horses. An Angel would split 3 horses 3 times and win it. You just remember these things about it, and now, we don't even have those. I mean, they used to run the first race of the meet. It was always 12 horses, and on the. Yeah.
Did you read Clancy's column the other day in the Saratoga Special, where he was giving some ideas aimed at the idea of, and he talked about conditions, and there were a few good ideas in there, but one of them was conditions that would be for horses that were bought for, like let's say less than $100,000 or less than $50,000, which then would take maybe some of those big outfits out.
Santa Anita experimented with it all this past winter. Rick Hammerly put that. They did that, and it included homebreds, and up pops Mike Pegram with some homebreds by Cat Burglar and whatever that Baffert's training, and so even under that scenario, there's some challenges.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's not going to be easy. I'm not somebody that's being critical and saying they're doing this wrong or it's anybody's fault. I just think moving forward, if we're gonna make this product bettable, and I think it should just even get better. It seems like everything else is better at Saratoga. When you're here, the worst part is that the races aren't better. And I have some crazy ideas, like I always do. But even if they use, just partially some of them, but I'm sure there's a lot of smart minds. And you were talking about Marshall Graham, and there's hundreds, or not thousands, of smart people that are in racing, and the fans are probably the smartest. I always say that when you talk to somebody in the stands, and I've been given about 15 horses at this meet. I think every single one of them run first or second. I look at the figures, I look at it, and I say, yeah, it looks all right, but I don't have any idea why they like them, and because horse players are smart, so and they're going to realize that the product is not as good, and then like Duke, he's going to go to Gulfstream, and somebody else is going to make a different move. So we have to make the product better, and I don't like the exclusion on that, for Seth's point, because I don't think the idea is to get rid of, Chad Brown, or to get rid of Todd Pletcher, or to get rid of Graham Motion, the guys who have thousands of horses. But because if you start doing that, then they're going to have a horse for that race too. We need to think of it in a different way. Of doing the races, and hopefully, with this Thoroughbred Ideas Foundation, we can make some kind of step in that direction.
You gotta keep the little guys in the game, though. If you don't keep the little guys, if they can't make the money. It's just like, if you go back like 20 years, Bay Meadows was a great track to bet.
Right.
And then when Hollendorfer started winning 40-50% of the races, that place went downhill so fast. And if Chad starts winning 40-50% of the races, it's just you got to keep the little guy happy here. Or, he's got to get a ball in here.
And that's another.
So they got to run
New York. I mean, the winter program has got to keep these guys alive more, and we don't want to go down that road either. But with the workman's comp and the challenges that the smaller trainers are facing, that has definitely been a factor on the product here. There's no doubt in my mind that's been a huge factor.
And again, we should remind people you guys are keyed into what's going on there with your brother, who's training on the
who threatens to quit about every week.
You talked about when you were young, and years ago at Saratoga, that picture you put up. Do we have? I sent it to the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody would enjoy it. If do we have it?
All right.
Oh, good. Here, you got. This is precious. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, I tweeted that out on Duke's birthday.
With the Saratoga shirts too, yeah, like
the original ones. I think that was the first year.
That was giveaways.
The giveaways.
That was the first giveaway shirts.
Yeah,
81.
81, and they faded terribly, unfortunately. Somebody at Twitter asked me if I had one, and I wish I did, because they'd be worth. But they faded really bad. But they were.
He's already got binoculars and probably a stopwatch too.
Exactly. It's amazing. And you've already got a look of disgust.
That is true.
You're already pissed off about
that.
That's right.
He was probably yelling at Velasquez or something.
Georgie Velasquez, not John.
Yeah, Georgie.
Speaking of Cordero Velasquez, I got to ask you guys. Obviously, prominent contest players. You typically wind up in Vegas. Have you guys qualified for Vegas? And just let people know, how many contests do you play a year to qualify?
I've played probably 10 this year. Mostly at Santa Anita because that's closest to me. And I'm double qualified for the NHC. I finished third in the last tournament, and The tournament that comes to mind that I played was the one that the World Horse Players thing, because I was like 6th with 1 race to go, and I took a really big swing in the last race to get to first, because I thought it was a big edge if you got to first, the way that new format is with the blinds and all that. So, and my son and I were watching the last race in the contest room, and horse takes the lead. He's like 7 or 8 to 1, and I got 3,000 to win on him, and he gets nailed on the wire. And I finished maybe 12th, so I missed the top 8. And then I get a text from my brother Paul. He said, I tried to call you. I liked that horse in the last at Santa Anita. So after being extremely upset, I was even more upset because he hit the race, and I didn't like the horse. So, but I play. I don't play too many, but I play. I definitely want to get into the NHC every year, and
that's pretty good though.
That's the best
double
tournament.
Qualify and you play 10 tournaments. That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to play some of these other ones that are just with the big entry fees. There's so much going into the prize fund, and if there's nothing really there to win, I mean, what's there to win? I'm not going to put up half my money into a prize fund that I don't need an NHC spot, so it's like I just don't see the value in it. But I mean, I like to play them. I mean, but the NHC is definitely our favorite tournament by far.
Yeah, I qualified for the NHC in Santa Anita as well. I played Monmouth and I played Saratoga for the money contest. I had a weird thing happen when I qualified for the Santa Anita, because it was a pick your prize type thing, and the Pegasus is worth the most, and I had a chance to get it in the Pegasus, the BCBC, or the NHC, because I finished 2nd, and I took the NHC, which everybody was making fun of me on. But my 2 main goals, that I want to win the NHC and I want to win the World Series in Las Vegas. They're my 2 major ones. I wouldn't mind winning this one here at Saratoga. This one's a little tougher now because it's 2 days and it's kind of a lesser thing. But if this got bigger, I wouldn't mind winning one at Saratoga either. But those are my 2 main goals of the year. So you have to qualify for the NHC. So I play till I get qualified. And then after that, I don't play all that much. I thought about this after because of that contest, and Duke and I are going to play 12,500 on those races on Gulfstream on the Pegasus, and some of these other guys probably aren't gonna, but it's already factored into our bankrolls, like the BCBC even. I'm going to bet a lot on the BCBC. If I'm right during the Breeders' Cup Day, without the contest,
right,
and it's in our factor. So they say, well, it's worth this much. Well, it's not that much because we've already factored it in our betting for the year that we're going to play a lot on those days. So, and you can't get in the NHC if you don't qualify. So that's a kind of a elite spot for me. So I know the mathematics aren't there, but for me, it was an easy decision.
I'll toss this out there as well because I've never been out there. I wish I had more time to play the contest. I love them. You have to think a little bit differently. But and I will applaud my co-host because when the NHC out in Vegas comes up, I listen to your coverage on the radio and you think, oh, a horse racing handicapping contest on the radio. How I said, but it's always a lot of fun. And you guys were on last, and you just get the whole feeling of, you talk about how smart horse players are, and you get the feeling by listening to the radio show just how true that is, and the camaraderie and the fun. I would love to play more and qualify myself, but it seems like that Vegas contest just is a real room full of real horse players. They're totally into it, smart guys and women as well.
Yeah, the atmosphere at the NHC is different from almost any of the other tournaments. I mean, the money tournaments, you don't get that where everybody's in the same room and people go bet on
Well, if a big shot like
machines.
Steve Bick's going to show up too.
And when Steve's there, he makes it.
It's a big deal.
I barely missed the final table again, and so we went on for what did we want, a couple hours?
Oh, it was it was the highlight of the coverage.
Yeah, so we went on a couple hours.
You guys were. The gloves were off. You want raw opinion. These two, and you want to understand what's going on in the mind of a player in that scenario. And
it was also great. The winner scored, and Paul was after the winner scored with the final bet. Yeah. Paul said, "I wouldn't have played that." Even after he won that, you were critical.
I still think he made a mistake. He picked the winner. The horse won, and I still think he played wrong. But that's racing, Contests are a little bit different, though. You got to, like you said, you got to play a little bit differently. And he set himself up to lose. I mean, his ability overcame his strategy, to be able to pick the winner.
That was great, though. It was definitely a lot of fun.
Couple of minutes left, and I do want to circle back and get a couple of opinions and maybe some second half concepts. You mentioned being out at Santa Anita, and I was fortunate enough, just the way the broadcast schedule I laid it out was there for Big Cap Week and for Santa Anita Derby Week.
For you.
Which resulted in being there for Justify's second and third starts. The allowance win. In fact, we were all together.
Yeah, I was with you for the.
And we, on the backstretch, you were convinced. Oh my God, Justify's dying. He can't win from there. But we got to watch it, and then of course the Triple Crown run. And got to mention your impressions of this 3-year-old crop that I think is morphing again, and I got a feeling we're in store for a absolutely dynamite Travers. Talk about the second half of the year. We have got the Travers, we've got the Pennsylvania Derby, and I think the 3-year-olds are yet to, the rest of them other than Justify. Your final thoughts on him, and then the rest of this crop going forward.
You really want my thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think the 3-year-olds this year are probably close to the worst ever. I mean, I don't see any. I mean, Justify, his figures are very, very low for a Triple Crown winner, and I don't see anything up and coming that's improving. But I guess Gronkowski maybe he could.
Just because he's an unknown quantity.
Yeah, because he only had one shot against him and he ran second to him. But I really don't think there's anything out there that. I don't think Todd has much that's going to improve, and I'm not a big fan of that horse. I've just never been a fan of that horse.
Coming out of the West Virginia?
He
ran huge.
Yeah, he's got a good setup. I mean, that's one of the problems I think with all the 3 winners in the West Virginia. They all ran, they all made a step forward figure-wise. Good Magic, Hosberg, and Mr. Freeze, but all of them had good setups. I got a good story about. I had a prediction that Justify was not going to run again. So when the Breeders' Cup Futures came out for the Breeders' Cup Classic, I wanted to play a bunch of them because he was skewing the odds. He was 2-1, I think, in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and I didn't even think he should be 2-1. Though I have a little bit different take on Justify, and I'll wheel back to that. But so I wanted to get a bet in on on the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I've got a bunch of Breeders' Cup Classic bets that have no chance. I got good value on them, but they have no chance. I mean, I got 50-1 shots and 100-1s on the Dallas Stewart horse and a couple Dale Romans horses, and none of them are going to win.
Code Blue.
But I figured, I think I made Code Blue. I made a good bet though, because at the time they were all longer odds than they should be.
And that's what it's about, whether it's a future book or whether it's day to day.
I have one on Catholic Boy, which I think is an interesting one, because. I think he's got upside. If he did win the Travers, he might be able to go for it. I'm not usually a turf to dirt horse, but I think Catholic Boy is a dirt horse running on the turf. Who's equally well.
Who's
maybe
he by? Who's Catholic?
Is he Scat Daddy too?
I think he is.
Yeah, and to talk about Justify, I think figure wise, and I'm a figure guy, so I can be. Critical of the horses usually. The only thing I would say about Justify is that Baffert hurried him so much to get into the big races that I don't think it's a weird feeling, because I think we never saw the best of Justify, and I think he would have run a better race down the road. But the 3 races that won the Triple Crown, you have to agree with Duke, it's probably the worst 3 races that ever won a Triple Crown. But and that's modern day racing. If you want to, circle it back to the other thing, these trainers can get the horses to run better when they have 2 months.
6 weeks, yeah.
So any horse that's going to win the Triple Crown, probably with this group of trainers and this group of environment, is going to fit this Justify mold where, all right, he won the Triple Crown, but we're not going to see the Secretariat where he blossomed in the last race and become the best. That's probably gone, in racing. So I do think we're going to see more Triple Crown winners just because of the environment. Everybody owns every horse. There's no competition between the owners. There's 4 trainers that can win it, because they got all the horses. So, and everybody gives up after the Derby. Everybody comes in the
Everybody
Derby.
wants to be in a Derby.
And
Nobody wants to be in
cares
a
after
Preakness.
that. Nobody wants to win these other races. That's why I tweeted, they got to make these races worth more money.
They got to put more money in the Preakness for sure.
The Preakness has got to be $5 million. The Belmont's got to be $10 million. I mean, the Breeders' Cup Classic and these other races are that much money. Why isn't the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont? They're the biggest races we have.
The Derby should be $5 million easy.
Easily.
It could be $100 million.
Well,
with the money they make.
and there is a move afoot in Kentucky to put Churchill's feet to the fire regarding the Derby purse. That it's almost embarrassing.
Yeah,
it is.
It's $1 million from them and $1 million in entry fees.
Right.
I mean,
That's
recognize that the 20 horses are putting up $50,000 each. So how is this race not $5 million?
Creates all this money.
It's preposterous.
They make so much money, it's scary.
Exactly.
I bought tickets this year to sit there. I'm betting $50,000, a day there, and I'm paying $5,000 to sit somewhere. I mean, come on, that's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah, I mean that race has got to be. I mean, they got. And the stud fee argument is long gone. That this argument. Well, he's worth so much money because if he wins the race. Well, first of all, that's not true. We've seen a bunch of them.
We saw from California Chrome by Lucky Pulpit. That got him nothing.
Smarty Jones. I mean, there's a long list of them.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't. This horse was a little different because of the. If Scat Daddy was still alive, there might have been a different scenario afoot with him staying on, and Baffert could have taken his time, and they could have worked toward a 4-year-old year. But with Scat Daddy dead, this horse becomes, the heir apparent to Scat Daddy.
Yeah, I just don't like that argument. I mean, let's make this race the biggest race in the world like it should be, personally. And the other two, too. They have to be worth a lot of money, too.
The Preakness has got to go way up. I mean, that's how they're going to get more people to run it.
And maybe we'll see these horses develop later, too, where it's not a big hurry just to get in the, in the preps. You see a lot of these horses, I think this year in particular, we're talking about the crop, they were over the top in April, a bunch of these horses,
Well, you can run in the Pennsylvania Derby for $1 million, and then the Preakness is only worth that. I mean, why would you run in the Preakness in 2 weeks if you can wait 3 months and run against nothing for $1 million?
It just doesn't make sense.
An opinion today.
An opinion.
Come on. Come up with something.
Melon.
It's a delicious melon. That's a good opinion.
I don't have scratches yet, but
I just pulled them up. So if you mention one that's out, I will alert you.
I like Take Notice in the first race.
Still in.
Still in, okay.
And if Lucas had won the contest, I would have won the contest yesterday if Lucas had won that race where he ran second to the 6th. I put all my eggs in that basket.
Derby Date.
Yeah.
Talked about that horse on Friday, and then like a moron, I didn't use him right in the race. On Friday, I said to Nick Tamero, I said, I'll tell you who's going to run well out of here is Derby Date. Right. They didn't name the horse Derby Date if they didn't think. There's a few clues that are out there, folks. It's as dumb as it sounds.
Yeah, he definitely had talent. That's the old analogy. If somebody names one fast, you could definitely know.
Fast Bullet, Fast Anna, absolutely.
And the other they name Slow or Rat or Ratatouille or something like that.
Well, hopefully Take Notice is well named here today. But I think if he gets aggressive in the first race, I think he'll be really tough. Well, you had some opinions.
Well, I got opinion in the third race. I think Navarro's here to get claimed. I don't think he's not here to win at Saratoga. He's not here to for the sale tonight or anything. I think he's here to get claimed. So I'm kind of against him in that race. Even though he probably didn't get the best of trips the first time up the lap. It smells to me that the whole purpose of the trip is to get claimed. So that opens up the race if you believe that, that Adrift is probably the right horse.
I thought Lady Apple might wire the field in the 6th. That horse got a pretty big pace figure. I thought maybe might be able to get in front.
They paid a lot of money for that Lady Apple too.
And they thought highly enough of her to put her right into the stake, and she almost won. I don't disagree. Moquette has a look in there at a price for the Leblancs as well. Wild Moment, I thought. And then here's Chad with feedback at 9-2, and those are the three that I came up with too.
Yeah, that horse has got a pretty. I think Truth is won first time out. I think that was a half sister to that horse.
I have a horse I'm interested in the race before it, the 5th race, and I don't. Is the 9 out? Seth?
Nope.
No.
Nine is
I
still in.
didn't think he was going to come out. I think this horse is this filly here is well met, Barclay Tag horse, and it's a little bit of a weird thing because it's a Barclay Tag first-time starter.
Brucia Latera is the horse.
I really
12
like the
to
workout
1
pattern. I like the way she's been working, and the El Padrino has had a lot of first-out winners, and Barclay can win first time if the horses are good, and he's had a good meet too. I think the horse is really tricky in there.
What about Leora for Catalano?
That one's out 8. I like the 8 too.
Keep an eye out for Leora, who Wayne Catalano
yeah.
he talked about on the radio actually with us last week.
Yeah, that was my top pick, but that one.
You see that Todd's got a full sister to Verrazano running in the last main track only.
Ayers Rock.
Full sister to Verrazano. Oh, I think won by many lengths at Gulfstream in his first start.
The Full Brothers.
That's right.
By Chick out of what's your mother? Get your mother's name. Linda. Absolutely productive, and as always, it's just it's so much fun to get you two here.
I feel not today. I've noticed all day. I was watching earlier. I feel sorry for Seth on this Sunday show. You have a big shot. You go all around the world. You come here on Sundays and you just mail it in half the time. And
that's outrageous.
I feel like Seth is like playing. He's like playing with Willie Mays when he was on the Mets. Award winner, and you come in here.
What award did I win?
Well, I mean, you turn down the Eclipse Award every year, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so. Mail it in. I mean, I'm shocked to be.
You bring Melons on this. Would you do this if Bob Baffert was on the?
Absolutely. I used to bring these
the
when I had the barbecue. I used to bring them for Zito's. I used to bring melons for Zito. Absolutely.
The Baffert, you give.
I would if I would bring Baffert a melon.
I want to see next week when you got Todd on. I want you to give him a melon.
A melon? All right, we can do that. We used to have those yellow flesh watermelons. Did you have those?
Yellow watermelons?
The yellow flesh watermelon, about that size, a little bit bigger.
No.
Oh, you don't know.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
No, we don't. People are hanging on to every word.
We are rooting for you guys, though, again, to bring the check. You brought the Boston Spa, but we're rooting, obviously, hometown hero. You're out of town now.
Let Duke win one.
He's been close every year. I mean, he makes the finals every year.
It's getting frustrating. I've been ever since they went to the cut thing, I've been in the finals every year, and I've only made the final table, was it once?
Yeah, that time with you.
But yeah. Just missed the other 2 years, so.
And this year I really blew it. Though I wouldn't have won because I think that last race you mentioned would have cost me winning. But I should have made the finals, and then I won the consolation.
Oh yeah, the next day.
That's right. That's right.
So I beat everybody in the second day, and I was like $2 away from making the cut. So I did really good.
Oh, that's frustrating. Yeah, but that's part of horse racing.
Yes,
it shows that even at the highest level,
Yep.
it happens to all of us.
Yep.
Matisse Brothers, Paul and Duke, we appreciate the visit as always.
Thank you.
It's one of the highlights of the Loose on the Lead year. Steve Bick, Seth Merrill, Loose on the Lead every Sunday morning. We're halfway through. We will continue next weekend, Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Enjoy the races this afternoon. Speaking of contests, once again, low roller today over there. It's fun. $40, 10 in prize pool, 30 you play with during the day. You keep whatever's on your card, and if you win, you get a nice cut of that prize pool. I think they pay down to 5 places typically if they get over 150, which they have been doing the past few weeks. So keep that in mind for this afternoon on the front side. Otherwise, cash some tickets. We'll see you again next week.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.